Welcome to this special Italian wine podcast broadcast. This episode is a recording off Clubhouse, the popular drop-in audio chat. This Clubhouse session was taken from the Wine Business Club and Italian Wine Club. Listen in as wine lovers and experts alike engage in some great conversation on a range of topics in wine. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinepodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. And remember to subscribe and rate our show wherever you tune in. This episode is proudly sponsored by Vivino, the world's largest online wine marketplace. The Vivino app makes it easy to choose wine. Enjoy expert team support, door-to-door delivery, and honest wine reviews to help you choose the perfect wine for every occasion. Vivino. Download the app on Apple or Android and discover an easier way to choose wine. And good evening. Hi there, everybody. This is Clubhouse Ambassador's Corner on the Italian Wine Club, and my name is Joy Livingston, and I'm standing in for Stevie Kim tonight. She is presently in Sardinia. She just flew there, so she's probably still at the airport, I'm imagining, but I believe it's the Gita Scolastica, and so she's going to be visiting lots of wineries and generally doing all wine things related. So Laika, the Clubhouse manager. Laika, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Laika. So we're going to be the moderators this evening. So the Ambassador's Corner is essentially something that was started to allow ambassadors and wine lovers the opportunity to interview their favorite producers. There's just so many in Italy, and so we're gonna get started. This is going to probably be recorded unless there's any snafus, and then it will go on the Italian Wine Podcast in the next few weeks. This is the 16th episode of this program. So this has definitely been very, very popular. I think what I'm going to do is introduce our guest moderator or our guest host for this evening, Luca Casolari, who will be interviewing Guglielmo Bertani. And he's going to introduce Guglielmo. But let me just, are you there, Luca?
Yes, I am, Joy.
Hi. I'm just going to give a quick introduction to you. Okay. So you are one of the most recent Italian wine ambassadors for Vinitaly International Academy, and you qualified in the latest Verona edition in June 2021. And you're a WSET Diploma holder and wine educator since 2018. And you worked as a wine buyer and educator in Dubai from 2015 to 2019. And, which is really cool, by the way, I've always wanted to go to Dubai, PS. And you're currently working for Moet Hennessy in Spain. Can I ask where in Spain?
Yes, you can. I'm actually working in Ibiza. I'm currently here in Ibiza, and I spend the whole year over here. So that's my area. I'm a lucky one.
Yeah, isn't it? Is it true that Ibiza is like the party center of Europe?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. Yes, definitely. It's a great place to be. You are most welcome to come visit anytime you want. So.
Oh gosh, don't say that to me because I'll be on the next flight.
The invitation is out there for you, Lika.
Thank you.
And Guglielmo as well. You're all invited, guys.
Yeah, I'll take you up on that invitation. Huh? Don't say it twice.
All right. So I have a couple of questions to ask before you get started. So why did you choose Guglielmo Bertani to be your producer of choice?
So it's a little bit of an emotional situation. I grew up. I'm originally from the outside of countryside of Modena, from the Bassa Padana, let's say, small village, and it's about 1 hour driving from the DOCG of Amarone della Valpolicella. I've been outside of Italy for the past 12 years, really. And at any time I have an opportunity to go back home, I used to go with my brother up to Garda Lake, Sirmione, Peschiera, Desenzano. And I always pay a visit to Negrar to visit some winery, having some tasting. And my brother and I fell in love with the wine from Bertani, with the Amarone della Valpolicella, particularly the Tenuta Santa Maria, and it became a little bit of let's say a ritual, no? To go visit, have some, buy some bottle of Santa Maria, and have it with the family. So when I was asked to choose a producer, it was kind of natural reaction, instinctive reaction to pick Bertani.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I would say it's a great choice too, because I think we were recently at Bertani for an event they held, and it's an absolutely stunning place to visit. And
yeah, I hope that this interview is gonna get me an invitation to the to the state itself, no?
Of course it will. Always welcome.
Okay, so my next question is, what are the learning objectives that we should expect from this interview?
Yeah, I mean, I think, of course, this podcast is based on education. So I think having Guglielmo is a great opportunity to get to know a little bit more about the history of Amarone. I mean, there is some very interesting story with Bertani that we're gonna discuss later. They're all played by traditional Veronese grape varietal, and of course method of production, and some more information about the technique of ripasso and winemaking technique that are popular in that area. I think is a good opportunity.
Cool. Okay. And you've probably already sort of touched on this, but how did you first discover the wines of Tenuta? How did you first, did you like, when was the first time you sipped one of their wines, or did you like stumble across it?
Yeah, I think it was, one of my trip in Veneto, one of my wine trip to Veneto with my brother. We were kind of, browsing around enotecas and tasting some wine. We fell in love with the wine from Guglielmo, and we bought a batch. I think I don't want to say a mistake, but I think it was a vintage 2007 of Tenuta Santa Maria Amarone Classico. And my brother is not a fast drinker, so we still have it to this day. And every time I go to Italy, we open a bottle. So it became a tradition. I started, I think, in 2013, a few years ago already, and we keep it going.
That sounds awesome. Well, Luca, I am going to give the floor to you now and let you do your thing with Guglielmo. And go ahead, guys. I'm going to get back to you after so that we can maybe open up for questions if we have time. So go ahead.
So I think first thing first, Guglielmo deserves a proper introduction. So Guglielmo Bertani is the co-owner of Tenuta Santa Maria di Gaetano Bertani, together with his brother Giovanni, that I believe was a guest also at the Ambassador Corner at some stage. He represents the 6th generation of Bertani family, and he has joined the business full-time quite recently, at the beginning of 2021. He previously was in Hong Kong on a different type of business as a vice president for the Asian market of Timex Group, mostly looking after luxury watch brand. So this is a passion that we have in common, Guglielmo.
We'll talk about that another time.
It is also interesting because it was looking after China, USA, and Hong Kong. There might be some question about export market for Amarone. Today again is the 6th generation. Guglielmo and the Bertani family continue the tradition. and I'm very excited to have him here, and I'm very much looking forward to have to start the interview. Are you ready, Guglielmo?
I'm ready. I'm honored. I'm very happy that you get to know us and appreciate us so well. So I mean, I'll try to do the best job possible answering your question, knowing that you know us so well already.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll do just great. So I really cannot have you here talking to me and not ask you anything about Acinatico 1928. I mean, it would be a sin not to do that. So is probably one of the first things that wine passionate and definitely the people that follow this channel are thinking of when hearing the name Bertani as a old and great history of tradition. And I would like you to give us a little bit of a brief on what is this Acinatico 1928, why is so special, and why is it considered, let's say, the father or including the grandfather of Amarone?
Yes. So, Luca, thank you very much for the question. I think, of course, it's a very, very interesting topic. Acinatico, for us, has almost a sacred status inside our family, and we love to talk about it, and we treasure it very much. So, Acinatico is a name that is associated with the Veneto region since a very long time. So there was a wine called Acinatico, and there's documents talking about Acinatico since the year 503 after Christ. That is more than 1,500 years ago, and it was a wine described as being similar to Recioto at the time, and it probably was produced throughout the region ever since. Coming to more recent history and what is associated with our family, in the 1920s, our family was producing this Acinatico wine only in very exceptional vintages, which 1921, 1928 was one of, and Acinatico was used these grapes that were similar in very similar process to the Recioto, the sweet red wine from Veneto, where the grapes would be selected in the vineyards, dried for about 3 to 4 months. And what made the Acinatico very special, and why we consider it as an ancestor to Amarone, is that the sugars were developed into alcohol to a greater extent than what they did with the Recioto sweet wine. So the Recioto sweet wine, coming also from dried grapes, ended up with still 80, 100, even 120 grams per liter of residual sugar. And that was the typical wine from Verona. Acinatico, 1928, and the previous vintages, developed to 10 grams per liter of sugar, about, and 16 to 17 degrees alcohol. So that made it a style of wine that is very close to what we call today, a modern Amarone. Although, Amarones, there's the drier styles that we make, about 3-4 grams per liter. There's more, residual sugar ones at about 13, 14. Acinatico in itself at around 10 was very much in line with what you would define today as an Amarone. So at the time, they were making this style of wine, Acinatico, which basically was in line with the Amarone, although it wasn't called Amarone yet. And that's very interesting that happened. The name Amarone came later. Maybe we'll have an opportunity to talk about that. But Acinatico was really much in line with that. And coming to the history of the 28, it was a very special harvest that we see on the registry of our family. It was dried for about 3.5 months. It was fermented and aged for about 10 years in a one big cask of about 60 hectoliters, so about 6,000 liters, and bottled about 10 years later in 1938. And in these handmade bottles, and really right after bottling, or a couple of years after, World War II broke out. and we had the German army stationed right next to our winery in Grezzana at the time, our old winery over there. And the Germans would go every day into the winery every evening and pick up a few bottles for their enjoyment without asking. We couldn't say no, or family couldn't say no. So my great-grandfather decided at some point to take this whole batch of 1928, almost 7,000 bottles, and actually hide it away. It was buried in a farmhouse behind on the hills behind the winery, buried under the floor of the farmhouse with hay above and below it. And in case, after the war, we needed something to restart the business, basically. This wine would be there, this amazing wine would be there and could be utilized to restart the business. But then, the war ended. It never was really needed. Family knew it was there, but never really went back until actually this farmhouse was restored. In 1986, they were doing some work. They reopened this floor and they found these 7,000 bottles, which ended up being perfectly preserved. In a way, the wine was amazing. With this freshness to it, and actually still is. And so it sort of became this very unique story, for our family. I would say also within Italy to have 7,000 bottles of a vintage that old at the time was quite unique. The bottles, were used for different uses, and ended up our family right now as a Tenuta Santa Maria. We still have a little more than 2,000 bottles in our private reserve, and it's something that Riserva, and it's something that
I guess not for sales, no?
Well. We tend really not to sell it. We have a few selected customers where we would agree to actually give them a few bottles, but it's usually something we use for events. Here we have tasting events. We had an auction for a charity in Hong Kong and one in New York, where we auctioned a few bottles, but it's very much something we treasure very much. We were not very much into the business of selling this wine as much as giving it to the next generation. And myself, I think I've tasted it 5 times in my life. So I was lucky enough. My father at the time, when he was still alive, he said, we're going to open only when you have kids. So I was lucky enough to have 2 kids. So I tasted 2 bottles on those 2 occasions, and a few others for events. But I tell you, the wine today is very much evolved into something that resembles port. Is up to above 17 degrees alcohol in structure as a still some residual sugar. We suspect that through the years, the sugar slowly developed further fermented and went up to these 17 degrees. But it's incredibly drinkable. And then if you're happen to be on one of these events where we open a bottle, I will be more than happy to taste it with you.
Finger crossed.
Yeah.
Hope to have that privilege someday.
Absolutely.
Guglielmo, the story is unbelievable. Really, is a piece of is a real piece of history, and congratulations. You touched based on your father, on your family, and. Your family has been an essential driver of innovation in the region and in the DOCG of Amarone della Valpolicella, Recioto. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was one of the first Veneto producer to introduce the Guyot training system, green harvest, which back in the day was crazy, high density planting. So I think it would be interesting to know a bit more about it, how that come about. I believe there is some connection also, I believe, with Burgundy or with...
Yeah, absolutely. So the story there goes that, the family was already into the wine business since the 1700s. so for quite a long time. But when it came to around the 1850s, both Bertani brothers, so Giovanni Battista and Gaetano, were part of the resistance. So Verona was still under Austrian domination. They were part of this resistance for the liberation of Verona, for Verona to join the Italian state, and they were exiled. So they kicked out of Verona. One of them stopped in Milano, and the other one took the occasion, actually went all the way to Burgundy, where he spent quite a few months knowing Mr. Guyot, the famous agronomist, who actually had just developed this Guyot training system of pruning and renewing the vine every year. And what happened is that when the second War of Independence was over, Verona at some point actually was part of for Italy. The two brothers came back and actually really introduced this Guyot training system to Verona, which at the time was an extreme innovation that people first said that they were crazy to do something like that. Then over time it really developed into a something extremely unique, and with helped Bertani built its fame as a quality reference producer in Verona. You have to imagine at the time, vineyards. You would have vineyards with mixed with other cultures. So you would have cherry trees and some vineyards. Where you have full vineyards, it was with the pergola method, with the high production, and they came with the Guyot system, producing high quality grapes for high quality wines, and was something extremely unique. And my father always said, that by the 1890s, the Bertani family was making as much revenue in 1 year per any given hectare as the value of the land itself. So actually, they would double the value of the land with every harvest. So that was extremely, an extreme jump forward for the viticulture in the Verona region, and of course, the two brothers were part of it. And it's not only that we, as a family, we really value innovation a lot, and we try even today to keep it a very, very open. A very open mind when we look at viticulture and of course vinification. Meaning we tend to travel a lot. We tend to exchange, and work with friends or French agronomists to actually see if there's something we can learn. And my father himself actually imported a piece of France in the 1990s by planting some international grape varietals such as Merlot, Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon in east of Verona, in Colognoli Colli, using these high density vineyards at more than 10,000 vine per hectare. So we're very much with a similar mindset as our ancestors. And but for us, innovation is not only, of course, looking at abroad, or looking at France, or looking at other regions. It's also very much working with local varietals as much as we can, especially when we talk about Valpolicella Classica. We are very, very much concentrated on using only local grape varietals, and we're working to reintroduce additional grape varietals in the blend. So in the vineyards first, and of course afterwards in the blend. Some of them are which are almost have almost disappeared through the years here in Valpolicella, but which would really we are working towards that, to actually add to the complexity and really work to enhance the character of our Valpolicellas and Amarones. And other things we're also doing in terms of innovation is also we're working towards what we have to actually plant the next vineyards. The next development is going to be at new vineyards planted at a higher altitude, in a way to compensate for this global warming that actually is really taking effect in Verona, in Veneto, and especially here, but I'm sure everywhere else as well, where we had Amarone harvest now have moved about a month earlier compared to the 1970s. So we would pick the grapes, not me, but our family would pick the grapes in the 70s around for the Amarone for the drying beginning middle of October. Now it's beginning middle of September. So it's really changing the character of the wine, and we have to, in a way, innovate and look beyond what we do today to compensate for this.
Guglielmo, thank you very much for the explanation. It's very interesting. Sticking on the innovation topics, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that your family was also responsible of the creation of the ripasso method. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, ripasso was sort of like an open secret inside Bertani that has always been utilized since the 1800s, and actually, in a way, absolutely predates Amarone. So today, we say Valpolicella ripasso is connected to the Amarone or is a baby Amarone, but it's not entirely correct, because ripasso was done in our family in the 1800s on the skins of the recioto. So at the time we were making drying the grapes to make sweet recioto wines, and then we do ripasso on the skins of the recioto. The result would be, Valpolicellas, which were quite probably different from what you would see today. So more with a higher sugar content, so more amabili in a way. But absolutely, that was the ripasso method that was in the family since the 18. I believe really since the family was in the wine business. It was a way, to not waste the great character you had on the skins of the recioto on fermentation. So complex aromas, strong tannins, this great sugar content, and in terms of then putting on the label, that came very, very much later, because it wasn't until the 80s that some producers started putting ripasso on the label. And the family all of a sudden, it's got somehow, I wouldn't say the idea stolen away, but marketing wise, other wineries were putting ripasso. Putting the ripasso first on the label, and the DOC is even more recent. Is a little bit more than 10 years old, 10 years old, when they actually defined what is ripasso and how you can make ripasso, and then now finally, it's very well defined what you can do with ripasso. But ripasso and the family, a very, very long history.
So, Guglielmo, talking about your, I guess your signature wine, the Amarone. Amarone is a wine that is, compared to Italian history, wine history is relatively young. I mean, I believe that the term was coined in at the end of 1930, and I'm a bit curious to know about how was the story, in the sense of, was it a success overnight? Did it happen slowly? How is it performing nowadays? Which markets are currently the predominant in terms of demand? A bit of insight about the market of Amarone nowadays and how it was in the past.
Yeah, so first of all, again, a wine in the style of Amarone predates the name of Amarone by quite a few decades. So Acinatico was there at least from 1928. Then we have labels, we have actual bottles in our family, Riserva, of what at the time we called Recioto tipo secco, or a dry Recioto, from the early 1930s. So the family and the region probably was producing Amarone style wines well before the name Amarone came about. The name Amarone came about, yes, on the registries. Actually, here on our main facility here, our main winery in Villa Mosconi here in Valpolicella Classica, where I'm sitting right now. Where actually we were not. The family wasn't owning here the facility, the winery at the time. Somebody else was making wine here, but then the cantiniere, the guy in charge of the winery here, was using the name Amarone on the registry, and that really was the birth of of this denomination. But the very first bottles were bottled by Bertani and another one or two producers at the end of the 50s. So 57, 58 is when Amarone, Recioto Amarone was actually put on the labels. And funny enough, when our family decided to go and invest in the wine and start bottling an Amarone, our family wasn't really happy with somehow, the styles of the wines here in Valpolicella, from somehow a bit too sweet in their taste. And then when they had to develop the Amarone Classico Bertani, they actually went and looked for a winemaker, and they found one in Piemonte. Yeah, they very much like the Barolo styles, and they actually brought this winemaker from Piemonte, and he's the one who actually built the character, the style of the Bertani family Amarone, starting from the 1950s. And very much in this elegant, well-balanced, integrated style with your residual sugars, which are there, but not overwhelming, with your dry extract, but very much integration and the alcohol content.
More elegant than opulent, no? I would say.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Not looking for these exaggerated opulence, over drying the grapes to get these very concentrated wines, but very much look for balance. And the pickup was low initially. But actually, it was my father that in the 60s and 70s started going around in the States and around Europe to introduce the style of the wine of Amarone, and especially then when older vintages became available and the aging potential of this wine showed itself, it really became a very strong success. I would say that the name Amarone was associated with our family very closely, as almost as synonymous for the first 20-25 years of its history. Then, of course, a lot of other great producers, to be honest, came along, and the whole region very much developed the style. So, absolutely, then there's an evolution there. Today, in terms of market, I think for us as a winery, Tenuta Santa Maria, we have always very, very good feedback with our Amarone. So our demand always outstrips supply, although we are quite a premium brand if you compare to other Amarones also in Valpolicella Classica around us. But although, I think it's a question of working with this very specific style and carry on the tradition of the family of more elegance rather than opulence, as you were correctly saying. And we do great, both on traditional markets such as US, Northern Europe, Italy, we're doing quite well, but also Far East and China, where I've been working quite a lot in the past few years. We see a great feedback. I think, looking at the future of Amarone, I think the region has to do a better job in increasing the perceived value, in increasing the average quality of the production, and maybe work on some crews, maybe more specific denominations, so to give more value and specificity to the single valleys. And I think if we do that, there's going to be a great future ahead.
Once again, following a bit the Burgundy model, no?
Absolutely. I think there is no reason why, the French, yes, they have the cruise, but there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing the same. I mean, we have that in Piemonte, we have that in Tuscany even, and why shouldn't we be doing that in Verona as well, in Valpolicella?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So
look, one of the main subject to become an Italian wine ambassador really is learning about autochthon grape varietal, local, traditional, native, etc., etc. My understanding is that in the region there is quite a little bit of a debate with regard of local versus international. Of course, climate change is a factor, play a role, as you briefly touched earlier. One of the things that I like about your approach is that I see quite a distinction between what you do under the DOCG and what you do on the IGT, more of a classic local grape varietal on the DOCG and more of experimentation on the IGT. I'd love you to explain us a little bit what's your philosophy. I think there is some storytelling there. I'd love to hear it.
Thank you for this. It's a great question and a big topic here. But for us at Tenuta Santa Maria, we are absolute believers in using only grape varietals, local grape varietals, indigenous grape varietals for the local denominations. So for Valpolicella Classico and Ripasso and Amarone Classico Riserva, we only use Corvina, Corvinone, Rondinella, and we are now introducing Oseletta to the blend and working on additional varietals. For the Soave, Lepiga, which we produced east of Verona, we decided a long time ago to only go 100% Garganega with some additional work that we do in the winery to actually give it a bit more of expression. But I believe that also coming from what we were discussing before, that the future of our region is about cruise, is about identity, is about expressing what's unique about our region, and we believe this goes through really local grape varietals, indigenous grape varietals, and we don't stop at that. We think also in terms of vinification method and the aging, we are also very classic. So for the Amarone and the Valpolicellas, absolutely only big capacities of wood. So big barrels, so 30, 50 hectoliters. So we don't use barrique at all or tonneau in the Amarone, because we don't want to have that impact of the wood on the wine. We don't have that influence, and really go long aging, 4 years or more, using big capacity, and Soave stainless steel aging. And again, as you were correctly mentioning, we also do a great work with a lot of work with international varietals, so Merlot and Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon, but with a completely separate philosophy that we have there. And actually, physically, it's two different wineries. So we have one winery here in Valpolicella Classica, where we work on the Amarone and Valpolicella. We have one winery in Val di Lasi, where we work on the whites and we work on the IGTs. So really, really separate. And, I'm not saying we are necessarily right, or we necessarily have, let's say, the final word here on what's going to be the future. Is others do it a different way. They can use Merlot, or they use Chardonnay in the blend with Soave. They also do great products. It's only that we're very, very convinced on our direction. And I think it's at the base of our DNA as a winery that we have this very strong conviction.
Absolutely. I think it's fantastic. The way you're doing it, it's great. It couldn't be clearer. The philosophy. Guglielmo, you just mentioned very briefly about a Soave that you're doing, the Lepiga. Am I pronounced it correctly?
Yeah, you are.
So, I'm personally a fan of Soave. I love Soave, especially a little bit aged. I know that you are doing a Soave quite classical. Is 100% Garganega. In terms of interest in the market, perception, Soave is throughout his history became a little bit of a brand on his own, and has got his own up and down. I don't know how is that perceived nowadays outside of Italy. It's is that Viving a Revival is still a bit of skepticism around this wine. Well, how is that nowadays?
It's a fact, to be honest, that Soave has lived days where it was the cheap Italian wine on every wine list around the world, and cemented that image. So actually we have to work when we present and sell the Soave in the US or anywhere else in the world. We actually have to work to actually work against this myth. But it's also true that we work a lot with the Garganega. We work a lot on this product. There's also a lot of great wineries out there that did an amazing job over the years, and there is a market. There is a market for a higher quality Soave. That as long as you work correctly, in the winery, you work correctly in the vineyard, you have your identity, and you have a clear identity of the wine. I think there still is a market out there that loves Soave. Garganega is an amazing grape. Soave is an amazing wine.
Is one of my go-to wine when I'm having Asian cuisine. So I couldn't agree more. I mean, I really love the good quality, high quality Soave. I think there is so much potential.
Yeah. We do this thing with fining on fine lees for 60 days after the fermentation, where we extract a little bit of this aromatic character, a bit more of the aromatic character of the Soave, and actually it's very well perceived. We're getting very good feedback. Italy, we're doing quite well. US, UK, Northern Europe, we're doing quite well. We also had some success in selling this the Lipiga into China, for example. Although it's a very small part of the business still, but still there is interest there.
I'm sure it will grow soon.
Hopefully, yeah.
I think it's a perfect market for it. Okay, so Decima Aurea. I haven't got the privilege to try the wine myself, unfortunately. But I have spoken with people that had. I believe is a Merlot made with a appassimento method.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is something that is interesting to me, is because I've seen that now even in South Africa and in other regions of the world, the appassimento method start to become a thing. And I would like to have your opinion. First of all, how did it came out about the idea of having a Merlot done in this method? And more generically, talking about Italian grape varietal, do you feel there is another grape that would be ideal for this type of methodology that perhaps hasn't been yet utilized this way? Just as a chat.
Well, we have. So first of all, about the Decima Aurea, this is part of the other side of my father. Next to making Amarone and Valpolicella, he was also traveling a lot. Was very curious. Traveled a lot to France, and wanted to actually express himself also with the international varietal. So he decided to try and make this a great Merlot, but that would be instantly recognized as something from the Verona and Veneto region. So after planting the vineyards in 92, 93, we experimented, different vinification method, and we came about this appassimento. But appassimento very much intended as a way to adding an additional layer of complexity to the wine, rather than looking for concentration, opulence, or sweetness that you usually have with appassimento in Verona. So very much not wanting to do an Amarone out of Merlot, but making a Merlot that is recognized from Verona. So here we only pick about 50% of the grapes, a little bit early. So this year was 3rd of September. We dry them for 3 weeks on half the grapes. And the rest of the grapes are picked fresh, vinified separately. They do wood, barrique, and long fining and release. So it's very much the appassimento. This very short appassimento is to give this signature of Veronese style, of Veronese character. These over-ripened fruits, these dried prunes, these very specific scents and flavors you get on the dried wines, on the Amarone, and you can find also on the Ripasso, to give this signature on the Merlot. But it's absolutely a dry wine, so we have almost no residual sugar, and it's very much more like a world-class Merlot, or we like to think that one day it will be. And this also brings us to the second part of your question, that about drying, the other varietals. So Merlot, even if we wanted, we couldn't make an Amarone out of Merlot, because Merlot has a very thin skin. thin skins, and it will dry no more than 3 to 4 weeks. And after that, if you really dry it for 3-4 months, nothing would be left. So really, there's no way to do that. The fact that in Verona we have such a strong appassimento culture also led to, over the centuries, to a selection of the varietals, Corvina, and within the Corvina, the clones actually have thicker skin and can withstand a longer appassimento. So that's why we have a variety of indigenous grapes that can do the appassimento, that are in the blend of the Amarone and of course of the other wines, really because then they've been selected and through time to do that. And to do that with the other varietals in Italy. I know there's other denominations which have been born recently, also Barbera, there's in Puglia where they try the grapes. It's really, in terms of generally speaking, difficult to apply the same method of Amarone, of drying, to any other grapes, really because of they might not be the correct, they might not have the correct structure and thickness of the skins to actually withstand the drying. So maybe shorter appassimento would be a possibility. But Amarone, fortunately, is unique because it's tied to its territory, terroir, and varietal. So to say we can make an Amarone somewhere else or in South Africa, I would be surprised they'd be able to do that.
Yeah, me too. I've tried some experimental thing and I wasn't that impressed. Anyway, look, Guglielmo, I'm gonna go to my last question because you have been very generous with your time, and I don't want to be abusive. I'm personally working in the champagne business, so for us, wine tourism, experiential. Tourism is a key component of our business. We'd like to receive as many clients as possible to our facility to let them experience what champagne is about. And I am aware that Villa Mosconi is perhaps one of the, maybe is without a doubt the best property in Verona when it comes to a chateau, a proper chateau, let's say. I would like to know what is your feeling about wine tourism nowadays. What kind of experience do you think you can offer, and how do you use this asset, this fantastic asset you have, such as Villa Mosconi, to promote your wine and the region itself?
Yeah, for us, for me, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. With Champagne, we've been many times in Champagne, in Bordeaux over the years, and we're always amazed by the great work job they do there with wine tourism. And I think there is no reason why Veneto and any region of Italy shouldn't be at the same level. We have, of course, we don't have chateaus everywhere. We don't have, the same looks or the same varietals. But I think wine tourism is essential to the development of wine business, and for us, it's an integral part of our strategy on how do we communicate, what we do differently, what makes us unique. And definitely are investing a lot in that. We are open for visits almost most days of the year, almost on season every day of the week, and it's very important for us because when we say, for example, that we still use the arele, the traditional arele for the appassimento method, is one thing to say it. Or to talk about it, show a picture, is another thing to have 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people a year coming through from September to December to actually see it firsthand, to see how extensive the use is that, and what it means, and explain and actually feel the perfume, the scents of the appassimento in the air. in a cold November evening with a scent of drying. It's something quite unique that I always tell everybody they should come and to understand what Amarone is. They should also feel that, and definitely it's something that we are investing a lot. We're pushing very much on growing our dedicated staff to that. And lucky for us, most of the people who actually come in season are from abroad. So we have Americans, Russians, from other regions of Europe. It's very important. And of course, we have events. We also do weddings, but that tends to be more local. But I also that's more connects us more to the territory. It's been a bit unfortunate, I would say, for the past 2 years for this side of the business, of course, for obvious reasons. But we've seen a great rebound in the past 4 months. So we're looking up for the future.
Great, Guglielmo. So from my side, I ran out of question. You've been amazing. I leave Joy. Do you want to add anything on?
Well, I've been listening. I loved this interview. It was great. I have to say there are so many questions that I could ask. Is there anybody on the floor that has any questions that they want to ask? Otherwise, I have one. Anybody? No. Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hand, so I'm going to go ahead. Guglielmo, so there are so many things I could ask because I absolutely love your winery. And I love the wines and everything. And, I've met your mom, who is a force of nature. She's absolutely fantastic.
And she takes all the most important decisions. It's her.
Yeah, I saw that. She's pretty fierce. I love it. So I could ask about sustainability. I could ask so many things, but there's one thing that comes to mind, and it's at your winery. You were just talking about how your winery hosts weddings and events and all these things with people from all over the world. And I know that in your front hall in your winery, and by the way, if anybody has the chance to visit the winery, they should, because it's absolutely stunning. I can't imagine how much it is to maintain such a beautiful building. But the frescoes that are in the front building, can you tell me a little bit about the frescoes and the artwork in the first when you come in before you go into the back where you have events?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the frescoes are very much integrated with the history of the property, which was built actually extended, because the property itself predates the current villa from the 1500s. So the villa was completed in 1700s, very much as a place of arts. So where you would have it became what we call a salotto for the local arts scene. And Contessa Mosconi would have hosted people such as Pindemonte, who live on the property for quite a few years, and so the whole property and the central noise instrumental to this was very much built with this in mind. So the hall itself is a concert hall for what was called musica chamber music or musica da camera. So the ground floor would be where the musicians would stand, and the audience would be on the first floor around the ballatoio or the balconies. And the frescoes itself actually represents and introduce this concept of art. So you have what we call the Salone delle Muse. So you will have these muses, the muse ispiratrici, or the arts. So you have the Musa for geography, you have the Musa for music, geometry, mathematics, and so on. Music, of course, that is very much creating this environment that I can imagine only the time, how magic it was. And the thing also reflects on the fresco at the top of the room itself, which actually then introduces this concept more of connected with agriculture, which is the four seasons. And we have a representation of the four seasons with the king of the seasons, as they called it at the time, which is spring, followed by summer, fall, and winter. and very much with a lot of this Greek mythology utilized in the symbology of these frescoes. Very much everything inspired by this Countess Mosconi, which at the time gave a lot of input in the building and decoration of the property. And it's it's something that also where we like to host events. We still host to this day concerts. Musica da Camera, we try to replicate exactly the same environment that you had at the time, so with the same instruments, so not the piano but clavicembalo, for example, and recreate the same environment from time to time for a lucky few that can pass through. So it's
it's beautiful. I mean, and every time I go there, I am always trying to guess, because outside you also have statues. And I'm always trying to guess which classical god or goddess or muse you have, as a statue. So, I mean, it's fantastic.
Well, for sure, we have the most important one is Bacco, and he's up there on the front of the villa, so that is very prominent and present. And but also, of course, we have Zeus, and we have all of the main gods from Greek mythology. And very much in the style of the time. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for answering that very whimsical question, because I realized the whole thing has been about your wines, which is, of course, the most important thing. But I couldn't help it because I absolutely love the property. It's beautiful. So, Laika, do you have anything to add, or is perhaps there's somebody else that has a question? Otherwise, we'll close up the room because we're 3 minutes away from the end. So, are you there, Laika?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I think it's time to close the room. We've already spent an hour during this interview, so it was really amazing. I've been listening to it, and I'm really engaged. And I wanted to visit Bertani. One time I visited it, but it was during the pandemic. But then I want to see it again.
Tenuta Santa Maria, you have to come visit us. Yeah.
Yes, I will. I'll definitely.
It's so beautiful. I love it. Yeah, definitely. It's, I'm gonna be honest. It was the first winery I've ever visited, and I've seen several wineries since, but it's very, I love the architecture, and I think it's such a beautiful property. And when I see people there and they're enjoying wine and they're, learning, and, it's a wonderful backdrop to the wine. You know what I mean? It's the perfect setting. So anyway,
we try to do a great job in maintaining it, and we that's very hard, and we try to integrate it as much as we can with the wine side. I think one helps the other, and it's the property itself. The villa was built with this French chateau concept in mind. Very much, yes, you have the villa side for pleasure, for enjoyment of the nobles at the time, but half the property was actually, since the beginning, a winery with extensive cellars below. So very much always in this wine production mindset since the beginning, and we try to bring both sides of it and bring forward and enhance both sides of it as much as we can. Yeah.
Awesome. Super. Well, Luca, thank you so much for all of your questions, and thank you, Guglielmo. It was amazing. And I think with that, I will go ahead and close the room. I hope that everybody enjoyed this as much as we did. And go ahead.
I also want to thank the audiences in the room, especially Melissa, Cynthia, Alberto, Clarine, Andrea. That's just so amazing for supporting.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Guglielmo. Thank Joy, Laika, and everybody listening. Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, Luca. Great talking to you.
And it's such a pleasure, And we're going to try and put this on the podcast soon. And it will get a much wider audience because, of course, I don't know if I mentioned before, but there are some people that live outside the time zone. And so it's difficult for people to tune in at certain times. So, yeah, have a wonderful evening, everybody. I'm gonna sign out now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now. Thank you. Ciao.
Sniff, sip, and screw. Once again, here we go.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.
Hi everybody! Italian Wine Podcast celebrates its 4th anniversary this year, and we all love the great content they put out every day. Cin Cin with Italian wine people has become a big part of our day, and the team in Verona needs to feel our love. Producing the show is not easy, folks. Herding all those hosts, getting the interviews, dropping the Clubhouse recordings, not to mention editing all the material. Let's give them a tangible fan hug with a contribution to all their costs. Head to ItalianWinePodcast.com and click donate to show your love.